Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're gonna be reviewing the album Coma by the band Nemo.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So the band Nemo, a band which I've never heard of, and I guess there's a good reason for it and we'll talk about some of it in the video, but honestly I wouldn't really want to get into this. The only thing I'm really happy for is the fact that now I know some of their music. Anyway, here's some of my favorite bits from this album. Today we are talking about the band Nemo. Now, do you note yourself that there are actually two prog bands called Nemo, both of them hailing from France, with the main difference between the two it being that one is an old 70s band that lasted for a really short while, and I think that they even included amongst their ranks Albert Mercour if I'm not mistaken, but the Nemo we are talking about today actually formed in 1999 and is, well, you can't really know if they still exist or don't. I guess we'll have to get into it in the video. So Nemo formed all the way back in 1999 in one of the southern regions of France by drummer Pascal Bertrand and guitarist and vocalist Jean-Pierre Lefontaine. And their lineup was finalized with the addition of the keyboardist Guillaume Fontaine and with the bassist Hervé Akis. Now Akis would actually be pretty hastily replaced, which would spark a trend of replacing bassists over and over again in the band for the rest of its runtime. Now in 2002 the band would release their debut album called Le Nouveau Monde, which means the New World, and this one would spark new interest of the symphonic prog and eclectic prog, especially in France. And the year afterwards, in 2003, the band would release their second studio album called Passage, which means omens, and that one they would actually get to tour around next to Anglegarde, Cast and Focus. Now after releasing these two first albums, Nemo decided that they wanted to come a bit back to their roots, especially to their influences being the English Genesis and the French band Ange, and well, they actually undertook a big task this time in creating a double album which would be released separately in two parts, being called If. And well, after this one came out, it turned out to be probably their best album ever, with the first one being generally regarded as the better one, but all in all, If is just the one to remember them by. Now since 2007, the band have been incredibly consistent in releasing one album every 2 years. They've done so in 2007, 2009, 11, 13, and in 2015 with the album we're reviewing today called Coma. Now up until that point in time, it didn't seem like Nemo's music was getting worse, less popular, or even less attractive to the masses. On the contrary, their music and career always seemed to be going upwards. Yet it somehow seems that since 2015, the band have went into some sort of a self-imposed hiatus. They've never really came out with a downright message saying that they've broken up, but at the same time they don't plan on releasing any new material anytime soon, and for loyal fans of this band, this has definitely been quite the hard blow. And that's about it. That's all I got about this band. And as you might have noticed, I don't really have a lot to say about this band, and honestly their Wikipedia page is so lacking that it shouldn't have even existed in the first place. Nevertheless, what I can say after being exposed to one of their albums is that, well, France has a pretty solid prog band in their midst. Yes, I might not be the biggest fan of whatever to be heard on this album today, but honestly, all in all, these are pretty much a very solid group of musicians. So what do I think of this album? Well, I think that the finer word to describe this one would be a bit underwhelming. Now, that is not to say that this album is bad, and you might even remember that I just reviewed Jade Warrior's album Released, where I noted that the band had this sort of vision of creating harder and softer songs, and well, this one also has this pretty stark contrast within it, having the real good progressive tracks on it, as well as having those very lackluster songs which kind of don't really fit in the vibe of things. So in the one corner you have songs like Ghost Train, Coma, or You're Not Alone, and well, these ones were pretty much fun blockers to me, if that even makes sense. The track Ghost Train comes right after the banger of an opener, and it just takes out all the momentum it generated. You're Not Alone honestly is a pretty fine song, but it focuses so much on the less than ideal vocals by Levanton. I really don't like the way that he sings, it kind of just screeches in my ear in a bad way, so that's why I really don't like that song. And of course you have Coma, which is pretty transparent, supposed to be a radio friendly track on a prog album. But the thing is, in the other corner we have some really good tracks from this album, being Mortal Coma, Saint Guy, and of course the title track. The opener track of Mortal Coma, which awfully sounds like Mortal Kombat now that I think about it. Anyway, this first track on the album is a really good one. I'm honestly surprised that it's not even my favorite from the album, seeing as it is really that good. But I would have to say that as an opener it just takes its place, and it is a great epic, even if it doesn't take the duration of an entire side. Now this one starts off really great. It has this sort of metal opening to it, which I wasn't expecting but I was definitely embracing, and after an intro of about 4 minutes, much like most of Renaissance songs with such long intros, you get the introduction of the vocals and you're already ripe to it, and it's honestly very much good. But this song also made me think of something else, and that's a pretty interesting realization. You see, the members of Nemo aren't really that talented. Now, this might be a bold statement of me to say, but honestly, I don't think that there's a lot of really virtuosic players being on here. I just think that the members of Coma have a really good chemistry within them, and honestly, that's enough to create some really great music. Yes, there's not one person on here that really shines out in their talent, and you know, not a Stephen Howe or god damn it, Peter Gabriel, David Gilmour, stuff like that. No, on the other hand, I just feel that everyone does their part so well that they're able to create something that's bigger than the sum of its parts at the end. Now moving on to the next track, which I was considered to be a great track on the album. This one is called Saint Guy. And well, this one I am not that ashamed to say that the reason I chose it as my favorite is because it doesn't contain any of Levanton's vocals. Yes, they just kind of ruined the experience for me on most of these songs, and it's pretty awful. It's not like they're too bad, they're not even that accented, but just something about the way that he sings just takes the level of this album, lowers it down. I don't like it that much, but all in all, this song is pretty great too, and definitely showcases the better side of Nemo's work. I would have to say that this piece also goes really hard prog at times, which is something actually quite nice. I don't usually connect to this type of stuff, but honestly on here it sounded a bit like Rush, and I might be overstating myself, but I think that it genuinely sounded a bit like Rush, maybe earlier Rush, and it sounded quite nice. But I will also have to throw this one out there. Even with this song being my favorite from the album, I honestly don't see myself coming to it that often. It is good, but it's nowhere near being perfect. And then we can move on to the last song on this album, totaling up to 6 songs, which I would consider this one to be again a great song, and that's of course the title track called Coma. And this one, well, it's the longest on the album, clocking in at about 13 minutes of runtime. Now this song might as well be the last Nemo song ever, because we don't know if they are gonna release any new albums anytime soon, and as far as we're concerned right now, well, maybe they never will. Maybe this will be the last Nemo song ever. And for what it's worth, it's actually really good, and it definitely gave the definition of eclectic a new meaning, incorporating a lot of textures, sounds, tones, and combinations of sounds which I honestly wouldn't really expect. One of the things which I really liked about this one is how symphonic prog it is, but it's not your typical symphonic prog that sounds like the 70s, but more what you might now call as retro prog, stuff that tries to imitate the past while also embracing the present. And I would mostly make the connection between this track and songs from Anglagard, and especially All Traps on Earth, especially when you go ahead and listen to the choir mellotron being used on here, which definitely gives off the same effect. And this song is what I would personally call an objective favorite, meaning that maybe it's not my personal favorite from the album, but if I had to guess what most prog fans would love from this album and would choose a favorite, well, this would be it. It's a really good song, and the only downsides to it, as I said, Leviton's vocals and maybe a bit of a longer runtime, but all in all, it's a great epic, and I highly encourage anyone to go ahead and listen to it. But yeah, that's Coma by Nemo. Honestly, a pretty good album, but I must say that it's not the biggest connection that I could have had with this type of music, and that leaves the rest of Nemo's discography to try and impress me. And knowing that now at this current moment they have a limited discography, I'm really hoping to find something that I like more in it. And well, maybe we'll do so next year, who knows, hopefully it'll be even better. So this album's cover is one that I personally don't like that much, and it's not because it's badly made, but in a way it just feels kind of disjointed and a bit impersonal. There's also this thing between the logo and the painting itself that I really don't like. I hate the stark difference between the two. The logo just painfully reeks at my eyes, it doesn't look good, same goes for like the album title. I just don't like it. I think they should have left it without text or have incorporated it in a much better sense. And somehow when I also look at this cover, I find several similarities to the cover of Tales from Topographic Oceans by Yes. Yes, it has something to do with the fish swimming all over the place and the pyramid-shaped structure in the background. And I'm not really sure what that's supposed to mean, but I guess that's just my own personal interpretation of it. And honestly, this cover, much like this album to me, is one that I can say is objectively good, but personally, there are just a few flaws that I can't look past, so take it as it is. So this is one of those cases of an album that's gonna get an average rating because it has some really good stuff on it and some not so good stuff on it. So you take the two and you get a rating of about 7 out of 10. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to the album Mabul by the band Orphan Land. I of course want to thank my lovely supporters over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Warner, Rist of Kings, and Lindsay Haycox. You guys are the best, and if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my About page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.